Here's my message to President Trump ahead of his meeting with President Xi. Continue to proceed full steam ahead with what's working when it comes to tariffs. Do not settle for an uneven deal. I know he's smart, but he has a lot of people from Wall Street, Goldman, Morgan Stanley, all these people pushing him on this. China has done literally nothing to earn a reprieve from these scheduled tariffs. China said they'll do better. Where's the evidence? Remember what President Reagan said about the Soviets when it came to military issues, of course. A big one was trust but verify. Remember, Mr. President, you won because of Main Street, not really Wall Street. Here with reaction is Stephen Yates, China expert, former Deputy National Security Advisor for Vice President Dick Cheney, and Robert Wolf, former UBS Chairman and Obama Economic Advisor. All right, Robert, you are of the mind that we need a slightly more, softer approach to China when it comes to at least the threats of tariffs. Why is that?
I would say it a little differently. I would say, one, I would argue I'm more forceful. I would have stayed with TPP. That's trading with the 11 nations ex-China. The best way to attack China is actually to trade around them. Secondly, I think it's all about intellectual property and patent protection. I would be much tougher on things like economic espionage and getting the FTC involved. With respect to tariffs, I just don't think that's a good policy because actually the one who loses the most are our consumers because the tariffs get passed on to us as taxes and higher costs of goods. So I don't think that's a great tool,
Robert,
although it's been working.
That's the line. You've recited pretty much kind of the internationalist line on dealing with China. Here's the problem with that, is that if all of these things were the way to go, then why didn't Clinton do them? Why didn't Obama do them? Why didn't Bush do them? Why year after year after year did we have an expanding trade deficit with China, and they became more bold, more aggressive, and frankly more vicious in how they ran their trade regime, how they dealt with U.S. companies? Little company up in, not little, but a company up in Minnesota. I'm just giving you an example. Cambria. They do quartz countertops. They just got a decision, I think it was at the International Trade Court, against what China had been doing. Quartz countertops. They ripped off all their designs, put cheap product into the United States, probably toxic, and we have real jobs on the line in Minnesota. Real jobs. Thankfully, they won, but they had the money to fight. Most companies just give up. They don't have the money to fight this. So if all these things worked, then why didn't all these genius economists in the Obama administration say, oh, let's do these? Well, they tried a lot of it. It didn't work because China is the big dog on the field right now. Other than the United States, that's it.
Okay, well, there's a lot to take under the hood there. Let me first start with, one, TPP was taken back by Trump. It was actually could have been...
Yeah, because it was a destructive force for America's sovereignty. We're not going to debate TPP here tonight because we don't have time to debate TPP. But it was a loser. Hillary Clinton even said she was against it. All of Middle America was against it. The
Chamber of Commerce was for it.
Oh, Chamber of Commerce. You just made my point for me if the Chamber of Commerce is for TPP.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Chamber of Commerce is good for what the bottom line is for American business when certain businesses are able to send a lot of work overseas. I get that, but it's not been good long-term for the U.S. economy.
Laura, tariffs have hammered agriculture, which is why we needed a bailout. Yeah. Is that accurate or not accurate?
I think we bail out our own agricultural subsidies too much. I have an interesting point to make on soybeans in a second, so I'm glad you raised that. Great. Stephen, let's go to you on this because, look, I think Robert does represent a dominant view on Wall Street. They do a lot of business in Asia. I don't blame them. I don't blame Wall Street for wanting this, wanting a more conciliatory approach to China because Wall Street got really, really rich as Middle America lost millions and millions and millions of jobs. And we bled about, what, $8 trillion from the U.S. economy because of these bad scenarios with China. But I don't really blame Wall Street. I blame the U.S. government.
Well, it is our responsibility to protect our own interests, and it's taken kind of a shock agent like Donald Trump to remind everybody about that being the primary mission of our government. And when we go into these negotiations, it's not to help make life better for the Chinese people. That might be a nice secondary consequence if they're looking to improve their livelihoods. It's to improve the livelihood of American workers, consumers, all those interests. But this has been part and parcel of a long-time theory that's been at the heart of China policy that has believed that if we've brought China into the global systems, that it would normalize their behavior, and our differences would narrow, and that we would have greater access to their markets. But even if you just take the tariff questions, they still have wildly high tariffs in key areas. And the WTO has had seemingly no impact on that. And behind the scenes, it's not just Americans who broadly think a change in course was called for. A lot of our allies, even Europeans, are now, and others at the G20 from Latin America, are saying, you know, we want President Trump to hold firm on this because there needs to be a reset in how China thinks it can engage the world. It's gotten away with too much for too long.
All right, Robert, do you think in
Yes.
the end Trump will back off on these tariffs, the increased tariffs that would kick in January 1st?
I think not. I don't think there'll be a real agreement coming out of it. I think that.
But a pause? There'll be a pause.
I think there'll be a pause probably for 3 months and say we have negotiations. The market will love that. He'll feel really good about the market loving that with what the Fed's kind of said recently going into Christmas time. So I actually think he'll allow the pause, but I think you'll hear the rhetoric starting literally January 2nd.
That's funny. On the soybeans question, we're out of time, but
yeah.
U.S. soybean exports to China are down 98%. It's a big hit this year, and the markets wobbled. The damage became clear to that industry. But the political fallout that China anticipated, this is from the New Business Week piece tonight,
yeah.
never materialized.
In the
Republicans
midterms.
lost a net total
yeah.
of 1 seat in Kansas, which is soybean country, 1 seat.
Yeah, but I just got to play the other side. But on the blue wall, they lost Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania.
But it wasn't China. The China tariffs are popular there, but they
not
lost
in the
for other
auto
reasons.
sector. It hasn't been.
All right, guys, thanks so
Thanks
much.
for having me.